Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. I hope you all are having a nice week. Today we are going to look at your sun and rising sign horoscopes for the month of December. I have my friend Alex Amorosi who is here. You've probably seen him before come on and break down the astrology of the month ahead. Well, this time he's here to help me work out the horoscopes for the month. I think you guys will really enjoy it. So that is what we are getting into today. He'll be here in just a second. In the meantime, before we go into your horoscopes today, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments, click the notification bell for updates. If you subscribe, you know when we're going live. People have been asking me, how do I know when you go live? You've been doing live streams lately. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. Usually for me, the way it happens is it'll pop up on my phone or my email, and I'll get like a notification that'll be like, hey, such and such channel that you follow is live. So that's how it works. In the meantime, a couple of things. We hit 50,000 subscribers this week. A big thank you to everyone for making this community what it is. It's a special place to share astrology, our love of astrology, and daily spiritual life. And as a result, we've added a few special awards to our Kickstarter campaign, which I'll take you to and show you in a moment. We are in the midst of our annual Kickstarter campaign to support the content that I create in the year ahead, and the team and staff of people around me who are also responsible for pushing this content out and making it look nice and getting it distributed everywhere. So every year we fundraise the last part of the year to support this work and this channel in the year ahead. Our goal is to reach 1,608 backers by the new year. Right now we're about 350 backers in, and we still have over a month to go. We're off to a pretty good start. And so if you go to the Kickstarter page, the link is in the description of this video or in the comments section of this video. You'll find me. I post a little link there and say, hey, this is where you can donate. When you go over to that Kickstarter link, you can choose a reward. And the rewards are, we try to, make sure that when you donate to support the channel, we also give you a thank you gift in the form of, say, a digital calendar that we make for the year ahead, all the major astrology transits that I'll be looking at on the channel. The Astrology of 2023 video, where I break down all of the major transits of the year and give you a feeling of what 2023 holds. I don't release that anywhere else. I have a bunch of talks for students of astrology that I don't release anywhere else. I have a year ahead horoscope reading where you can get all of the transits for the year ahead for your sun or rising sign when you donate. So there's a bunch of things like that. Look through them, pick one when you donate. It helps the channel. If you like this channel, if you get something good out of it, you're helping us, you're helping our staff, and you're hopefully getting something cool in return. One thing that we released as a special and exclusive that I will not have on sale anywhere else after the Kickstarter is a 12-part series that I am doing in the fall of 2023 called The Oracle Speaks. This is an exclusive podcast for people who donate to the Kickstarter. Again, it won't ever be on sale again. And this 12-part series is focused on the claim that astrology is not a science, but a form of divination. What is a form of divination? What kind of knowing or what kind of relationship with the universe does an oracle consist of? And what is oracular consciousness? How do you develop a relationship with the oracle, and how is that a key part to how astrology works? There'll be interviews, there'll be client readings, there'll be stories, there'll be history lessons. So it's a really deep dive that I'm doing in order to help people understand why, although it can seem sort of scientific, what astrology is actually a form of divination, and what does that mean? So we're going to be looking at that in depth in that series, and hopefully people will find it both fun and thought-provoking. And again, only people who donate to the Kickstarter can receive that one. And then, of course, the best thing that I offer, there's a couple of readings that I do that are more personalized for your birth chart that you can get. And then all of my classes are on sale. So if you want to attend my Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic one-year course, or my second-year program, or my Horary program, or my Readings and Passages program, there are 4 years worth of certification courses that I teach, and then other mini courses that I teach. All of them are available through the Kickstarter for 50% off or more. We even have the 4-class bundle that we did as another way of saying thank you for reaching 50,000 subscribers that makes the 4 programs almost 75% off. So there's a lot of good deals that you can save on if you want to take my classes. Check them out. If you have any questions about any of the classes before you donate for any of those bundles, you can always email us info@nightlightastrology.com. So thank you so much to everyone who's already donated. We are well on our way toward our goal. Hope we get there. We know some people can't afford to donate. We appreciate prayers, just good energy in general. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And with that, I am ready to call in my astrological homeboy, Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Adam. That I need to put that like as a title somewhere. Astrological homeboy.
That's right. So, Alex, I'm so excited that you're here to not only, I mean, we break down the astrology of the month ahead, and that's been really fun. But I was like, you know what? We're going to do horoscopes this month. How do you feel about that? And your game. So,
yeah, I'm psyched. I think it's really fun to take transits and then be able to talk about them within the context of the houses, because it really specifies things about what's going on within the more like meta ideas of the month. So I'm excited for it.
What do you usually listen to or look at if you're going to look at a horoscope? Sun, rising. What's your preference?
I always listen to rising. So I'm a Sag Sun with Leo rising. I always listen to Leo. Sometimes I'll listen to Sagittarius too, but I think like once I discovered that the way you construct a horoscope is off of the rising sign, Leo has always made a lot more sense to me. And I've had a lot more luck with clients too when I recommend that to them. It's a game changer for them and how they listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that whether you're doing a sun or a rising sign horoscopes for people who don't know, what Alex was just saying is that the horoscope is written with the idea of the sign that you're reading for being placed on the ascendant in whole sign order. So, you know, when you're looking at transits for a Cancer sun horoscope, you're putting Cancer, the sign, as the first house. So all of the transits are working through the chart in the houses according to the whole sign house placement of Cancer in the first. The way that makes the most sense to the actual look and position of your birth chart is if you read for your rising sign, because then it'll be a perfect match. So that's why I always tell people, look, if you want the horoscope that will line up with where the planets are actually transiting in your birth chart, at least from a whole sign house perspective, which, you know, is the one that I practice, and then use your rising sign. And but people can listen to their sun sign. But yeah, I just wanted to if Alex says it, then people will know that it's not just my soapbox. I'm not just, you know, it's yeah. Exactly.
No, I got on that soapbox. So you have to nudge over a little bit on that soapbox, because it's definitely, I'm on it too. And it made a big difference. It actually, because I would listen to Sag and I'm like, I guess. But then when I started listening to astrologers I really like do Leo, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. That's most people, I think, have that experience. It takes a minute. And also, if you're used to looking at things in Placidus houses, that can also be a little incongruent. If you're a whole sign person and you get to understand your birth chart and whole sign, you'll start listening to your rising sign horoscope and never look back. But that's just, that's my opinion. If you want to learn more about Alex, who is an amazing astrologer, healer, yoga teacher, check out his Instagram, Alex Amorosi Healing. He also makes really funny and hilarious reels that I love to watch. And you can also remember, every time he's been on for the past couple of months, he's been like, I'm working on my website. Well, his website's done. It's called alexamorosi.com. And I'm going to take you to it right now and show you how great he is. So let me share screen. And here's his website. And I just want you guys to know that if you want a really solid reading from a really heart-centered astrologer, Alex is, again, there's a reason that I have him come on every month, and I think you guys would really enjoy working with him. So check out his services. You can scroll down and see his astrology services. He's also has intuitive sessions and coaching. Of course, I'm biased. I'm like, go get the chart reading, because that's what I think he's best at. But I've also have never had a psychic reading with Alex, so I'm sure you're also excellent at those things. But regardless, this is his website, so I hope you guys will check it out. And anything you want to say about that, Alex?
No, thanks so much for putting it up. The intuitive work is what I did first, and astrology came next. But I will say, as someone who's an astrologer and an intuit, technical things like websites do not come naturally, and that is a lesson I have learned from trying to make my own website. So I furiously texted a friend of mine, my friend Ryan, who does this for a living, and I'm like, I need your help, please.
Right. Well, it looks very nice
across the room.
I mean,
Thank you. Yeah, it came out great. Thank you.
it looks nice, and my feeling is like, look, if you can book a reading through the site, that's all you
Right.
really, I tell my students that, like, oh, do I need a really crazy website? I'm like, no, you just need to be able to point people to
Right.
where they can book a reading,
Yeah,
so
it was simplifying down a lot of things actually to just make it a really convenient place for people to come in,
yeah,
find out
totally.
stuff and book stuff. So thank you for putting it up.
Yeah, you bet. You ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, we have
Ready.
3 transits that we are going to look at this month, and Alex and I are going to alternate. I'm going to start with Aries, and then Alex is going to take Taurus, and we're going to alternate like that and give you our take on 3 transits of the month for your sun or rising sign. Again, we recommend rising, but you could listen to both if you wanted as well. The first one we're going to look at earlier in the month is the full moon that is happening in Gemini, which is conjoined to Mars retrograde. So in a sense, this transit is bringing Mars retrograde to one of its fullest moments of expression. The full moon is carrying that Mars retrograde energy into full blossom. So we will be looking for that around December 7th. We'll visit that for all 12 signs. The second is Jupiter's return into Aries, which happens December 20th, as it is moving direct out of Pisces and finally pushing back into Aries, where it will stay all the way until May. But that re-entrance makes a splash when it enters a new whole sign house. So we will be looking at Jupiter into Aries. And then last but not least, the third transit we're going to be looking at for all 12 signs is the new moon in Capricorn, which is then followed just after by Mercury turning retrograde in Capricorn, pretty close stellium with Venus and Pluto. So that December 23rd through 30th spread toward the end of the month activates the whole sign house of Capricorn for everyone. So we'll be looking at that for all 12 signs as well. So those are the 3 we're going to be looking at. Let's get into it. All right, I'm going to put the transits up on the chart, and we're going to start with Aries. I'll do Aries to start, and then we're just going to alternate. I'm actually going to put a reminder of each transit up on the screen. So let's look at December 7th. Whoops, I'm in January. We need to go all the way back at the beginning of December. Sorry, guys. Hold on just a second.
If you wanted to see behind the scenes of an astrologer, this is it, clicking back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Clickety, clickety, clickety. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the full moon right here in Gemini around December 7th is, if you're an Aries sun or rising, is going to land in your 3rd house. Now that's obviously opposite the sun, as full moons are always exactly opposite the sun, in the 9th house. So this is a house, it's really the 3rd and 9th house that's being activated simultaneously. And I like to think right now, because Mars is your ruling planet, that there is a period of thinking about your thoughts that's happening, meta-analysis, or whether it's something like cognitive behavioral therapy, or it's meditation, or it's just the feedback you're getting from your life and your environment is causing you to rethink the way that you think, the way that you perceive, the way that you communicate. I think this full moon is going to bring that process to a head. And it could be that happens while there are ideological or philosophical debates being had, or breakdowns in communication, or that you're reaching a peak moment of needing to separate yourself from some kind of belief that you've held in the past, or that someone else thinks you ought to believe. So I think of this as a moment of individuation, mentally, maybe emotionally and mentally at the same time. It has to do with kind of reclaiming your individuality, especially as a thinker. So to me, that is probably the simplest way of summing up what I'm seeing from this full moon in the 3rd house. So that's your first transit of the month, and I would watch for that, especially peaking around December 7th. Now, I would also just add, I guess, peripherally, that karma around siblings can come up too. All right. Jupiter into Aries, which happens on the 20th. Now I'm going to move this forward a little bit to the 20th. And you'll see Jupiter entering your 1st house around this time. Now, to me, this is a very promising moment, because whatever you've just been through with regard to the 3rd house Mars retrograde full moon moment, I think it's building confidence in you. Jupiter entering the 1st house is the feeling that I can do this, that I can start something, that I'm gaining confidence in myself and remember the ruler is that Mars retrograde. So whatever process you're going through, it's as though it's helping you gain personal momentum, reaching this flashpoint when Jupiter enters Aries, which you've already been through in the past year, right? Jupiter entered Aries, retrograded out. Now it's coming back in. I wonder if this month for Aries, especially right around the solstice here, this is December 20th, doesn't constitute a call to action, maybe a call to arms, mentally, verbally, intellectually, but there's a mobilization of energy, effort, will, and inception. It's an inceptional place or a starting point. So I like this for you as just a good energy, like the wind at your back. And I think it's a very supportive one, but it may also be coming off from the mobilization of Mars at the full moon, kind of mobilizing that energy somehow. And then finally, the new moon in Capricorn, which is happening toward the end of the month. Now we'll go a little bit more like this, and here we go. So you can see that there's this conglomeration. Here's the new moon, and then Mercury's going to come in, closing in on the retrograde, which happens right around the 29th into the 30th. So this period of time from like the 23rd to the 30th, there's a lot of focus on the 10th house. That's the career house. So although the changes feel like they initially in the month belong to mind and identity, and they're very energetic and vigorous, and they have to do with who you are, what you think, what you're taking a stand for, there's this immediate correlation at the end of the month with a new moon in your career house, followed by a very potent Mercury retrograde in the career house. So it's as though these changes instantly want to translate either into your work or profession or workplace or how you show up in the world more publicly. So that's why I'm seeing this trifecta of transits for Aries rising. All right, let's move on to Taurus. And now Alex is going to take the wheel, and I will put these up in order for you, Alex, and do the highlighting. Go for it.
Awesome. So we're going to start out with this really powerful full moon in your second house, which is money and resources and the things that you feel support your physical life. And I would see this as a culmination point in clarifying the way you might feel about your money or feel about your finances or the emotions that are tied to the way you think about your finances. This is definitely a point where it might have felt very murky with Mars moving through the squares to Neptune. And, coming out of this, I think the full moon is going to bring to a head and clarify, as Adam's saying, I like that idea, bringing to a head and clarify some of the ways that you might be feeling about your resources and any ways you're taking or wanting to take action on those. So that's what I would say for the second house with the full moon.
Nice. Let's go on to the second one.
All right, Jupiter in Aries.
We're going to get
into your 12th house.
Here we go. We'll get it. There we go. It's teed up for you.
Oh, awesome. So Jupiter, I would say Jupiter entering the 12th house. This is really interesting because I think that this is a time where you can explore different mystical philosophies and different types of more esoteric or intangible spiritual philosophies, but also to check out like where your belief or philosophical system may have been born out of secrets or things that are hidden. And maybe this is a time too with Jupiter moving through the 12th house that it sort of brings to light things that have felt hidden for a long time or things that have felt like kind of under the surface and helps you reintegrate a new philosophy once those things have come to the surface that heads you in a really nice new direction. Jupiter in Aries is definitely a planet that's going to get you heading out in a new direction. So that's what I would say for that one too.
Nice. Let's go to the third one here, and I'm going to take it forward to the 23rd, which we won't drag it through every single day, but the 23rd through the 30th here.
So you have this new moon in Capricorn in your 9th house. This is a time, I think that it's really interesting that you've had Jupiter's ingress into your 12th house, and now you're getting this new moon with Mercury retrograde in your 9th, because this would, to me, signal going back over different types of philosophies or maybe religious practices or even educational venues that you've been through, going back over or re-understanding those through Mercury retrograde, and possibly also seeking out wise counsel. One of the ways I always really like to describe the ninth house to clients is it's a place where we seek out people who give us wise counsel. And that, with that ingress into the 12th house, it might be a time that you're seeking out the guidance of a guru or a spiritual teacher or a therapist or someone who has specialized knowledge that can be of benefit to you. So I really like this chain of event for Tauruses. Definitely.
It's interesting. As a Taurus rising, I was sitting there being like, okay, this sort of perfectly reiterates the crisis of faith and questioning that I've been through personally in the past couple of months and feel like is still going on, though in a very new way now that I've kind of left my faith tradition and kind of moved into a new sphere. So I was just sitting there being like, oh man, he's describing perfectly some of the elements of certainly how I've been experiencing the energies.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because people will always ask, they'll always say, is it okay if I've already experienced some of this? And it's like, yes, because transits are not only introducing something that's like brand new, but they'll often bring things to the surface, right? That have been sort of, they're percolating,
Yeah, there's sort of an intention to transits too, I think, which is really interesting. You can kind of, there's like a wave that precedes them sometimes that culminates with the actual transit.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, totally. Okay, let's go to Gemini, and I'll take this one. So we've got, if you are a Gemini, we're looking at this full moon, which is actually going to come through. Whoops, here we go. I have to do a little zipping around here. We're looking at this on December 7th. This is in your first house. So a process of self-reflection, a process of self-refinement. So you think of someone reflecting on their psychological nature, either through events or with a therapist, or maybe their physical nature at the gym or through a diet, or maybe they're letting go of being too strict with diets because they need to, whatever the case might be, physical, emotional, psychological self-reflection has been in the air for you since Mars entered Gemini. And at times, I think you could be hard on yourself with Mars and Gemini in the first house. You could be directing some of that energy at yourself in a way that's not always constructive. I wonder about a full moon joining that Mars and shining light on, has this process of self-reflection been healthy and helpful, or has it been critical and at times, self-harming even? I wonder if this is also a time when the process of self-reflection is somehow reaching its blossoming moment, the insight, the realization, the shift, the decision that needs to be made to follow through with a process of interchange or reflection that's been taking place for a while now. So that's how I would look at that one. Number 2 is Jupiter going into Aries, and let me just push that along here. So you can see this is right around the solstice. It's going to be on the 20th into the 21st. Here's Jupiter entering your 11th house in Aries. As this Jupiter is in Mars ruled sign. Mars is in your first house retrograde. You just had the full moon. How is this process of self-reflection, personal and identity or physical transformation, how has that made you aware of some new group of people that you want to be around, some new culture or community that you want to be a part of, or maybe a change that needs to be made within one? I think that this, in other words, Jupiter entering the 11th, given the ruler of Jupiter in Aries is Mars in the first, could have some ramifications on your social life, groups, allies, friends, colleagues that you belong to that are either cooperating with and helping you to, reach and achieve your goals and ambitions, or maybe hindering you. But there's something new that wants to get started there, and it's intimately related to the personal changes you've been going through. So that's how I would read that one. And number 3 is the new moon in Capricorn. We'll take it forward to this piece of the month here where you can see all the planets lining up. This is in your 8th house if you're a Gemini. So soul contracts. When I see this come through at the end, and I know that the 8th house is called the esteem of other people, so much of the 8th house has to do with what other people give us or bless us with or withhold from us, whether it's their approval or their liking or their resources or their love. Whatever it is, people are either giving us things or withholding things in this house. I wonder right now how the personal and social changes that you're trying to create in your life are having ripple effects. People are saying, well, I'm going to withhold something from you because I don't like how you're changing and the new path that you're setting out onto. Or it could be just the opposite. You could find that people are saying, I want to support you. I'm so impressed with the changes you've been making or the new direction that you're heading in. But I wonder how conversations with other people in your life and what they are giving or withholding become a really important part of the picture here, especially toward the end of the month. Soul contracts, you could call them, being in the spotlight. So that is what I have for Geminis. Let's move along to Cancers. And Alex, you're back up.
I love that idea of self-reflection in the full moon, Adam. Just wanted to say that quickly. That's really interesting in the first house. I didn't consider that.
Such a full moon in the first house thing when people become
Yeah.
full of this reflective quality.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. All right, Cancer. Let's see. Cancer rising. You are having this full moon in your 12th house. So this is actually, I really like this moment for you because this is at the midpoint of the Mars retrograde cycle and highlighting where, as we're heading into the second half of the Mars retrograde here, where you're clarifying where there might have been sort of action that needs to be taken to draw stuff out of the shadows, to understand subterranean or subconscious material, to maybe take action towards, understanding more metaphysical ideas and more metaphysical realms, or that sort of idea too. But bringing the full moon here in the 12th house, I really like because it brings a lot of light and clarity, especially to the emotional sphere and to the psyche around those ideas. It's a really nice moon to have in that house.
Here's number 2. I love that. That was a great interpretation.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll move this along now, so we'll get to Jupiter entering Aries.
The 10th house. All right, so Jupiter going into the 10th house. This, I think, is just a really amazing inception point for your career. Jupiter tends to bring the better angels of life wherever it goes. I think, 0 degrees Aries being the very first degree of the zodiac, this might be a time where you're either beginning something new at work or that has a lot of momentum and grace behind it. Might be a time where you're actually, beginning a new job or a new career altogether. But something that maybe has, where you're really feeling more committed to a mission and something that sort of lets you fight for something that you have a sort of a noble cause behind. So I think it's a really, really positive sign for the career house to have Jupiter and 0 Aries there.
Definitely. And then we have coming down the home stretch of the end of the month.
All right. So we got your 7th house. Oh, Cancer risings. You've had the Capricorn party going on there. So we're winding down Capricorn a little bit.
I don't know if it's a party.
Yeah.
It's
Party
a metal
Capricorn
party
style.
Yeah.
It's a very studious party. It's a very studious party.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say, with the new moon beginning here in the Mercury retrograde, reconsidering going back over, which you probably are well accustomed to over the last few years, your ideas around relationships, marriage, and sex. Discovering, especially Mercury retrograde, how you're thinking about and your relationships, communicating in your relationships. Particularly potent as Mercury's pretty close to Venus in the sky here too. But a sort of new beginning that might feel a little delayed because Mercury is retrograde and really get some steam going when Mercury turns direct in January. So, probably stuff that you're very familiar with, that you're getting one more past that to really reconsider how am I thinking about and communicating and bringing those ideas into relationship that might also concurrently be related to these different revelations you're coming out of in the 12th house with the full moon. So that's an interesting stellium there for the 7th house. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. All right. We'll push it along here. The Capricorn party has left the building. And
they're back to studying.
Right. I feel okay, here we go. Full moon. We're on Leo rising. So I'm sorry, I was getting myself oriented here. I'm going to bring this back to December 7th. So You know what? I think there's a simpler way of doing this, and I'm going to do it next time. Okay, so here we have. All right, so for Leos, the first major transit of the month is the full moon with Mars in the 11th house. It's a, it's a social place. The 11th house is associated, for example, in Indian astrology with mentors. But it's called the joy of Jupiter in ancient Western astrology. Jupiter is obviously a planet associated with teachers and mentors. But more broadly speaking, the 11th house was associated with allies. Well, Mars in the 11th house can be associated with conflict within communities or groups or among colleagues or with mentors or teachers or people who would normally be helpful to you may at this moment be harmful, or people who you normally get along with there could be more conflict with. You may be revising old, old fights, basically old drama could be coming up in that 11th house area. But it's all coming to a head right now as the full moon comes through. So what are you learning about this? What choices or changes do you have to make based on the social the social conflicts or drama that you might be experiencing? Now, on the other hand, I think that at times Mars in the 11th house will speak to the things that we're doing with other people that constitute like an effort, like a cause or a mission or a greater purpose. We're going to war with Mars. It doesn't have to be a literal war, but there's a cause or a sense of heroic purpose. So how is your sense of purpose and the people that you are connected to through your sense of purpose, how is that changing right now? And this is a moment that would be bringing some of those things to a head. Number 2 is Jupiter into Aries on December 20th. So here we can see that falls into your 9th house. So this is ruled by Mars in the 11th house. So it makes me wonder, could this moment of social revelation, asking questions about cause and purpose and alignment or allegiance with others socially, professionally, be related to some kind of shift? I'm going back to school, or I'm becoming more devout or religious or spiritually focused, or I'm adopting a set of beliefs or practices, or I'm a renegade who's taking off from a group or circle because my beliefs differ, and they're causing me to go. As I said, I was looking at Jupiter in Aries yesterday, and I said, like, I'm going to do my own damn thing. That's sort of Jupiter and Aries motto. So Jupiter and Aries in the 9th house, I'm going to believe my own damn thing. I'm going to think in my own damn way. And could that be connected to what Mars is doing in that very social house of groups and allies and colleagues and so forth? So that's something to think about. And then number 3 is the new moon in Capricorn. And let's take a look. Let me just adjust this just a little bit. So here we have the new moon in Capricorn coming through, and then all the way through the end of the month, Mercury turning retrograde, so that December 23rd through 30th period in your 6th house. Now, I wonder right away, whatever you're doing, could it be the beginning of a great work, a great undertaking that requires sacrifice and hard work and diligence and discipline? Because you got this huge stellium there in the 6th house. As Jupiter enters the 9th, Mars is retrograde in the 11th. You almost get the feeling of like, a group of kids coming together and going like, we're going to build a tree fort, and like, and why? Because maybe you don't have an ideology formed as a kid, but you're already, because this is the worthy goal, it has like and then it's like, okay, well, now we have to actually do stuff. We got to go gather material. Jimmy's dad has to get like his saw, and Jimmy's dad's kind of an asshole who drinks, but we got to get it. It's got to happen. I feel like, it's like, what
totally.
What do you have to gather to get something done that might be really hard work? And that's kind of how I would look at it for Leos right now. Some sacrifice required to get where you want to go, or some hardships or frustrations that are coming up and trying to dampen the enthusiasm that's coming through, and that you have to hurdle those somehow. All right. Well,
Goonies
those are
never say die.
Goonies.
That's all I can hear now.
Dude,
Goonies
totally.
never say die.
Totally. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. You're up, and I'll put, I'll get your full moon up here for you.
Awesome. So, I just want to say too, with Leo rising, with Jupiter going into the ninth house, one thing that has been coming up for me just quickly is I've always tried to figure, what is my spiritual philosophy? What is this? Am I of this? Am I of that? And basis, I'm a Buddhist, but honestly, I've been thinking lately, I'm like, I'm just what I do. I'm just what that is. I'm doing my own sort of way of synthesizing that all together. And that is exactly what's coming up with these Jupiter transits in Aries. So that
Super,
was
super
awesome.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a full moon conjunct Mars retrograde in your 10th house. So this is interesting in the career house. I think that this is a time where you would, if there have been conflicts in and around your job, or there have been, maybe even if it's just internal, and a full moon might highlight more of those internal emotional conflicts that are going on in the psyche. I think this is a moment of clarity. I think what might have felt very unclear about that at the beginning of the Mars retrograde cycle, at least this is the beginning of some clarity starting to show up around that for you, and beginning to again, maybe lay the foundation or the groundwork to take action um, on a new direction when Mars turns direct in January. So that's a really cool full moon to have in your career house that I think should start to bring some clarity for you there.
Nice.
All right. So
And you know what I did?
Jupiter's moving into.
I set the chart so that it sticks with Virgo rising, so it won't move. So it's like the first house will stay Virgo. So I was like, that's a fix so that I don't have to be constantly adjusting it.
Is it fun? We do readings, and I've made like my clients dizzy going back,
I know.
spinning the wheel.
I know.
So we have Jupiter entering your 8th house. So yeah, just like Adam was saying, this the soul contract place where people give or withhold. I often will liken when I'm working with the 8th house and clients to credit and debt ideas. The feeling of being indebted, or the feeling of maybe having, calling in a debt, or whether usually it's like sort of a karmic or energetic idea, or maybe feeling like someone owes, you owe somebody else, you owe something to somebody else. Jupiter here in this house, what I really like for you about that is Jupiter can bring some cohesion and some healing to any imbalances that you've been feeling. I'm just coming out of Jupiter in the 8th house. And that has been a huge, huge period of forgiveness and sort of amends and different ideas around past relationships or past energetic interactions where I've brought some balance back. So I think it's a really nice positive sign for the 8th house and rebalancing that part of life.
I love that interpretation of Jupiter in the 8th house as like forgiveness and amends. I've never heard it put quite that way, but yes, that's exactly it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's just coming off of Jupiter and Pisces doing that for me. So it's been a big period of that for me too. Yeah.
Oh, that makes total
All
sense.
right. So let's see. Oh, 5th house. All right. So this is rediscovery, going back over a new period for you that might feel like a few weeks of retreading while Mercury is retrograde, of understanding your relationship to pleasure, to joy, to art and creation, to sensuality and sexuality. It can also bring up some ideas around the way you're thinking about or relating to your children. Different conversations you're having with them. Maybe you have to have a conversation more than once, or you're going back over a conversation you've had with your kids. But the 5th house generally tends to bring about those sorts of ideas. And I would definitely look at karma if those who have children, definitely, or you're thinking about, maybe you're considering having kids and you're reconsidering all the sort of fundamentals before that happens. So those are some good 5th house things to chew on, I think, for the Virgo risings. Yeah.
I feel like Virgos can have this complicated relationship with pleasure. And I feel like that Capricorn in the 5th is part of why that is. So that I think that's the thing that really catches my eye with that one.
For sure.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to. Oops, you know what? Why it's not shifting? Because I set it so that it couldn't. All right, let's do Libra. All right, so now we're going to go back to. All right, so we have for Libra sun or rising, we're going to start with that full moon, which is landing in your 9th house. Now, to me, I think it's interesting because it just makes sense to me, given how considerate of opposites that Librans are. They are the domicile of Venus, but they're the exaltation. Libra is the exaltation of Saturn, and Saturn is the planet associated with the opposition and with the tendency of things to polarize into either or, black or white. Have you ever noticed that Libras love to wear black and white, or black and white photography and stuff like that? This it makes total sense that Gemini would be in such a soul's ninth house, because it's also when it comes to beliefs, it's going to be more interested in the multiplicity of beliefs and ideas, the exploration of beliefs and ideas, maybe a skeptical quality, healthy, not agnostic. I think it tends in that direction. It's not that a Libran doesn't have faith or values or anything like that. It's just, it's naturally that ninth house Gemini is going to be more open-minded, but Mars is not so open-minded. Mars tends to like direct lines. So it's interesting when Mars is in Gemini, because one of the results of a Mars retrograde in Gemini in the ninth house could be that there are 3 or 4 different ways to get where you want to go, but defining where you want to go is still important. Knowing what you believe, knowing what you want, knowing what you stand for, and then finding ways to express that open-mindedly, or finding ways to get there, multiple different paths to arrive at the same place. I feel like that's something of the process that might be happening for Libras right now. And that reflection upon some kind of mental, intellectual, spiritual, philosophical process seems to be at the heart of this full moon. Now, the second transit for you is Jupiter's entrance into Aries, which is going to happen right around the 20th. So, we'll just advance it a little bit more. That means Jupiter's entering your 7th house. What I find interesting about that is that then we can see, well, the ruler of Jupiter is the Mars, and that connection between the place of beliefs and consideration or reflection upon your thoughts, your ideals, your philosophy is somehow informing the appearance of Jupiter into the house of marriage, love, relationships, and so forth. Is this a meaningful time of revision or reflection that's going to help a relationship to be easier, to make a compromise possible? Or is this a time where you're reflecting on your beliefs because you realize, I can't compromise on some things, and that's going to come to the surface or come to a head somehow within a relationship? I think those are 2 possibilities to watch for. The other one would be just more basically that you're meeting someone who's really charismatic or enthusiastic, maybe that they're passionate about something, or they're thinking or believing, the way that they think or what they believe in or what they stand for is contagious somehow. It could be a very charismatic person or quality just entering love life. Being challenged, your faith being challenged by someone else too, your ideas or thoughts being challenged. And then finally, we have the last period of the month is this new moon, and then the confluence of the Mercury retrograde. Whoops, I need to push this along just a little bit more. So new moon in Capricorn, followed by Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, all lining up in your 4th house. That's the place of home and family, of roots. How have your ideas and your thoughts been shaped by your upbringing? That might be a question right now. How is marriage and family and relationships and whatever's happening with Jupiter entering the 7th? How are those things tied into your past, the family that you were raised with, the way marriage was modeled to you in your home? So you can see some overlap between home, family, marriage, and beliefs, in other words. But the stellium down there in the 4th house could also be about, really earthy, practical things like, I need to, fix something that's broken in the house. There's a paint job that needs to be done. I mean, sometimes it's just really practical with earth signs in the 4th. But any process of looking at your roots, your family, your home, your upbringing psychologically, and maybe the overlap between that and marriage or philosophical or intellectual beliefs and ideas could be coming up right now. So that's how I'm seeing those things all tying together for our Libras.
It's a really cool idea, Adam, of like, Libra and Gemini being related by the house is like the way that the belief is structured, right? That there's the two sides to it, or the opposite, or Virgo with Capricorn in the fifth house. I've never thought of it in that way before. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, actually, I think it's always there to be looked at in that way. And
Yeah.
I've known it has been, but I've been sort of lazy about it. And in the past year, I've gotten more interested in those connections because I've spoken to a few friends who are Indian astrologers. And in Indian astrology, the connections philosophically between houses or planets paired in different houses called planetary yogas are
Mhm.
like really well hashed out. And so
Mm.
I feel like it's a dimension of my it's I always tell people I feel like you get better with complexity as you go on. Like, and that's
Mhm.
just a level of complexity that it's only like in the past year that my brain has been starting to make more of those connections without, I don't like to try to force connections. Like, well, there's something there, so I'm going to force it
Right.
out. It's like I like any kind of craft or technique to start clicking because it's just like I start seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense in the context of those sorts of charts, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We got full moon for Scorpio risings. We got that happening in your eighth house. This is an interesting turning point here too, because what I could imagine with Mars moving retrograde in the eighth house is going back over where there may have been some conflicts in the past that had to do with the way other people saw you, or you felt the way other people saw you, or maybe having a view that other people saw you in a way that you didn't like, or something like that, that's being rethought of here. And this full moon really bringing this to a head of really seeing, like, beginning to see clearly as you sort of clear some of the feeling of challenge around those ideas. And I think that the full moon is really highlighting for us this month, whatever Mars has been doing in the first half of its retrograde cycle, the full moon is really giving you a good stamp on this, the spotlight on, to see what's going on around that. So I'd also say too, just seeing where there may have been some conflict in and around the feeling of what you owe or feel you're owed from other people, and like that beginning to either be highlighted and then beginning to find some way towards resolution. Maybe the inception point of that begins now with that in the eighth house.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we're moving Jupiter into your sixth house. So, Jupiter moving into Aries in the sixth house would be, maybe bringing some some understanding to the beliefs you may have really, really ingrained in around hard work and things being hard, and Jupiter and Aries being a way of sort of realizing, like, not if you, especially if you have a lot of planetary placements in the sixth house, things don't have to be so hard. That Jupiter can actually begin the inception of a magnum opus, of something that is going to take a while to come to fruition, but is well worth the work that you put into it. And you really can't ask for a better planet to be moving in to help you with the beginning of that process at the very first degree of the zodiac. So moving into the sixth house, I really like that. And it's possible that in the beginning, as Jupiter goes into the sixth house, in that it's helping you to clarify some of those ideas that have been going on in the eighth around credit, debt, or those sorts of ideas in the eighth house as well. And let's see. So we're going to be in the third house in Capricorn. Yeah. So, interesting. So this is interesting. I think that, with a new moon followed quickly by Mercury retrograde in your third house, this is definitely a place where I would be thinking about what you have learned again. I think that again relates to this idea with Jupiter going into your sixth house too, is like, what have you learned maybe through your education around ideas around hard work and how those ideas might be being reworked. It's definitely a place where there, with Mercury retrograde, there might be a revision of communication with siblings or cousins, or something that's going on even in your neighborhood, that there's a something that's being brought back over or viewed in and around your neighborhood or your condo building or something like that, is bringing also to light these ideas from the sixth house and the eighth house. So it's possible that this is all interlinked at this time of finding your way to a solution that may not be immediately apparent, but that will become clearer as you sort of move through this second stage of the Mars retrograde after the full moon. That helps to sort of like, I think that's going to be a massive clarifying period for all of the house, all of the signs.
Nice. Yeah. I like the idea of having to problem solve with Mars retrograde in the 8th and with Mercury retrograding in the 3rd, like simultaneously. Like that's a really nice take on that. Let's see here. Okay, whoops. I'm going to put our next, we're going to Sagittarius next. So, okay. Number 1 is the full moon that's going to be happening earlier in the month, around December 7th. So this full moon is taking place in your 7th house, love, relationships. I hate to say it, but if there's been conflict brewing, it may spill over, may boil over, whatever the right image is, probably boiling over with Mars and the moon. Also things becoming visible that have been invisible or secretive. Mars is the 12th house ruler. You've had some eclipses in the 12th house. I'm just thinking about that right now. And this Mars retrograde process sometimes will bring up the things that people that especially your loved ones, they are close to you, that think but don't say, that feel but don't know how to articulate, which could be a really good thing to have come out. Could also be painful to hear what people are withholding, or even at times destructive if people are withholding secrets that are harmful. I think the other main thing that I would look at would be just how are you handling conflicts? What kinds of conflicts are coming up? Which are worth having and which are not worth having? How is your partner or loved one changing right now? So those kinds of things probably come into a head with that full moon. The second one is Jupiter moving into Aries, and that for you lands Jupiter in your 5th house. It's right around December 20th. If you're a creative type, Jupiter entering your 5th house in a fire sign will often initiate the start of a new creative endeavor. So that's great. Like pregnancy as well would be indicated by Jupiter entering the 5th house. In a fire, I mean, usually a water sign is sort of like the top, like most textbook pregnancy would be like Jupiter entering Pisces or Scorpio or Cancer in the 5th house. But Aries is a cardinal sign of spring and could very well be like, newlywed couple, within the first year they get a dog, and then that means the next year there's a baby, so something like that comes to mind. Big accomplishments within your kids' lives, or kids joining a sports team or something. Could also be that the need or desire to take risks in the name of pleasure, like I want to go skydiving or something. I mean, just that need for sort of outlaw pleasure, maybe a little impulsive and reckless, but I think exciting. That's Jupiter in the. I'm going to get into high stakes poker. Okay, well, good luck. But I think the reason that I mentioned a little bit of caution around that particular endeavor would be because the last transit of the month that I'm looking at, the new moon in Capricorn, followed by Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, say the 23rd through the 30th, is in your 2nd house of money and finances. So whatever Jupiter's up to in the 5th house, there's this immediate conversation around values, money, resources, time, energy, and how you spend it. Income and expenditures come from the 2nd house. I like a new development happening in that 2nd house. I'm not exactly sure that Jupiter in the 5th house is the best one to be leading the charge, because sometimes Jupiter in the 5th house will be like, I've got the greatest money-making idea in the world. And, well, what is that money-making idea? We're going to make a new never-used bowling ball. It's like, all right, what are you doing? This is so, I feel like Jupiter is so inventive and so youthful and sort of naive. And I would say follow that impulse if it's translating into something around business or money or finances, even if there's a little bit of a risk involved, so long as you've done that careful Capricornian planning and due diligence and so forth. Because I think Jupiter could be a little on the, just a little impulsive in the 5th house in Aries. On the flip to the other side, just to be fair, you don't want Capricorn to come in as the grouchy, get off my lawn part of your psyche that's like, you can't have fun. It'll cost you 3 shillings, or whatever. So, just kind of balancing those voices around money and pleasure and creativity, things like that. So, all right. Anyway, that's what I've got for my Sages. I'm going to put, you like to get off my lawn? That was good, huh?
That was, yeah. Just say, okay, right. Listen, kid, you don't get that baseball bat.
That's exactly
It came on my lawn too many times. No.
Oh my God. That's Capricorn personified.
So funny,
okay,
yeah.
let's see here.
All right, let's see what are we doing. I got Mars. All right, full moon going on in the 6th house. So
this is Capricorn Sun and Rising, by the way. I forgot to say that.
Oh yeah, Capricorn Sun and Rising. We've got Mars retrograde hitting its midpoint with the full moon in your 6th house. I think that this is definitely a time where if you feel you've been struggling, it feels like things haven't been able to get forward momentum. It feels like you've kind of been bogged down since Mars has entered Gemini, especially your will has felt bogged down. This is a time where you might get some insight as to why that's happening internally, especially, when we're talking about the moon, you could say in the outer world, that's really, that can be related to ideas around the family or the home, but in the inner world, really the psyche, the emotional sphere, the more intangible spheres of the inner world. So you might be getting a little bit more insight about like what it feels keeps getting pulled down, or what it feels like tries to get going is getting pulled down. And that will definitely start to, it's probably start to turn around by when Mars starts to go direct. Mars is also in its joy in the 6th house. So there is some good analytical executive action that can be taken once Mars turns direct. You might just be in a review period right now around.
Nice.
That's 6th house.
All right.
Where they're 4th. So we got Jupiter moving in. Is that the 4th? Yeah. So Jupiter moving down into your 4th house. Really interesting. So I think this is, what may have, it might be that what's going on with Mars is sort of highlighting something that has bringing up stuff that has come around your family of origin, around your dad or your parents, land or ancestry or connection to ancestral lands, or your, it might be also that Jupiter is helping you reformulate a new cohesive philosophy around the way you may have seen your early life with your family of origin, or the philosophy of your family. Families have, what has happened in the family, and then there's sort of also sometimes the myth of the family has too, or the story the family has. So there might be something that's shifting or changing, or a new realization that's coming in around that with Jupiter going into your 4th house.
Nice.
And then we have in Capricorn, so in your 1st house, Capricorn. So you are going back over, honestly, I would say the way you think about yourself, and the way you probably, with Mercury, with this new moon that's happening very close to Mercury retrograde. Mercury is very close to both Pluto and Venus. The way you think about yourself, the way you communicate from maybe a place that is sometimes scary, but is deeper and more authentic. The way you communicate in relationships, or even how you're thinking about relationships and how you're communicating your sort of authentic wants within a relationship. I'm just thinking about that with Mercury next to Venus, but also like a new inception of yourself, a new creation of yourself. And Capricorn risings, you've had a lot going on in your 1st house for a while. This might be the beginning of a turning point in how you see yourself and how you understand yourself, and emotionally and psychologically as well.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's a big one for Capricorns at the end of the month.
Yeah.
All right. Last little stretch here. We've got Aquarius and Pisces still. So let's put Aquarius on the ascendant, and I'm gonna try to unpack this one a little bit here. So let's go back to December 7th. This is the full moon that'll be coming in with Mars retrograde. Now, if you're an Aquarius, this lands in your 5th house. To me, one of the most compelling things I've ever heard said about the 5th house, which came from one of my Indian astrology friends said that, the fifth house is the joy derived from your dharma, which would be like what you're good at, who you are, just kind of like the station in life that you're born to, which is not always obvious. Like sometimes we have to really search to figure out, like, just what does it mean to just be me and to do and be the things that I'm good at. It's a pretty existential time with Saturn in your first house, and has been for a while. Um, with Saturn and Mars having recently trined in Mars's retrograde from the 5th to the 1st, and with this full moon, I wonder if right now isn't bringing things to a head with respect to who I am and what brings me actual joy. What feels like a hassle, what feels like a bother, what feels like a frustrated place in me, and maybe that there's a frustrated place that needs to get loosened up so it can express more easily or naturally. Or what have I been trying to do that just isn't me, and that's why it's been frustrating. I think Mars with the full moon, Mars retrograde with the full moon, both sort of trining that Saturn. It's existential, but it's also about joy and pleasure. Could be also that patterns within your own psyche are being enacted by, repeated, or changed by your children. I would guess that the mirror that you're looking into right now with respect to your children, our children can definitely be mirrors, just like a spouse or a lover can be a mirror. You're looking into that mirror, and you may not love everything you're seeing, but it could be really useful feedback, and it could be a really constructive time for both you and a child. So those are some of the things I'm seeing there. Let's go on to Jupiter moving into Aries around the 20th. So when
I
that
love that
happens,
about the Dharma, Adam.
oh
I
yeah,
love that about Dharma.
okay.
Wow, that's
Cool.
beautiful. Yeah.
Isn't that a nice way of putting it? I've always really stuck with
Yeah.
me. So Jupiter going into the third house, to me, again, like I wonder if that aha moment, given that Jupiter's moving into Aries, Mars' sign, we just talked about Mars in the 5th, could whatever that personal process is, and however it's related to, am I joyful or am I frustrated? Am I happy and in self-expression easy, or does it feel sort of inhibited? Whatever's been going on there, I think translates to a change of mind, a need to communicate or express yourself or think or differently, that Jupiter in Aries will conceive of and need to push forward aggressively once Jupiter enters Aries. And then you also think with Jupiter in the third house of the mind, that the need or desire to learn something new. Like, okay, I'm an astrologer, and let's say, I have this transit, I'm an Aquarius rising. I could very well see myself feeling like, I'm partially doing what I love, but maybe there's some new skill or some new tool that I need to add to my kit in order to keep growing, because I'm feeling like I've plateaued, or like a musician who plateaus, or an athlete that plateaus. Okay, well, go study with this person who can give you something new, some different way of holding what you already know, and then it reignites everything. So I think Jupiter in Aries is acting like that, even just metaphorically, but perhaps literally. Now let's go to the new moon in Capricorn. And this is the last sequence. And for Aquarians, this sequence for you is happening in the 12th house. So it's happening in a very shadowy place, or a place that's not always well understood or very conscious. It's the thing that's gestating inside, the thing that you're pregnant with in the unconscious that you don't even know about, that you may be laboring with. And it's like, wouldn't it be, sort of like, wouldn't it be nice if when we were in the process of laboring with something psychically, that we had it as obvious as a physical symptom? Like, when someone goes into labor, it's like, oh, well, all of this crazy, gestation and shift in my body is happening because there's a child in me. It's like, that's so obvious. Well, psychically, that happens to us often in the 12th house, but you think you're going mad, or you think you're just frustrated, or whatever. You don't realize, no, those are contractions. Those are psychic contractions. So this is like the 12th house. And, this period from December 23rd through the 30th, it's like you're starting to, something is going into labor psychically. And that labor is fruitful and beautiful, but it's also something you're wrestling with. It's an angel you're wrestling with in in a womb-like space in the psyche. So that's what I would start to look to at the end of the month for Aquarians. It's very existential for you because the ruling planet of all those, Saturn, is, remember, it's in your first house. So it's something, and this makes sense. You're finishing Saturn up, finishing a long time of Saturn being in the first house, as this is also taking place in the 12th. That moon cycle is one of just a few before Saturn finally leaves the first. So seems like you're ready to give birth to a new version of yourself. Okay.
Cool.
And let me put Pisces.
Oh, my sweet Pisces.
I know,
My
right?
sweet Pisces.
All right, so let's go to December 7th. Let me get you teed up here.
Awesome. All right, so Pisces rising. You have a full moon's conjunct Mars retrograde at the midpoint of its cycle in your 4th house. So this is a place where you may have been going over that there may have been conflicts or disagreements around land or ancestral land or maybe with your family of origin or around stuff that was going on in your family of origin, that there's a highlight of some emotion around that, maybe, that begins to show a way towards a resolution. And it also could be that, maybe you're considering, where is your will as an individual within the context of what you may have inherited from your family? Where are you sort of individuating in some way from ideas you may have learned from your ancestry? Where are some of the places that you're going to take some beautiful action that is congruent with those ideas too? It might be that you're taking action in a rediscovery of something with from your family of origin or your ancestry that are actually really excited to take some action on, that you're discovering under this full moon, or that's beginning under this full moon. So I love that for you. And then we've got, let's see, we're gonna have Jupiter's moving into your 2nd house. Money, honey. We got some money, honey.
Nice.
Jupiter moving into the 2nd house, that can be a really good signature for finances. That's your 2nd house of resources and finances. Jupiter tends to expand. It could be that what you're rediscovering from those ideas from your 4th house, from family of origin, from those sorts of the basis of your life, or even just in the 4th house too, the root of who you are, the basis of who you are, is giving you new ideas that will bring an expansion to your finances. I think, just kind of riffing off what Adam was saying earlier about Jupiter and Aries, one thing you do want to be mindful of is Jupiter and Aries can make any idea seem like an amazing idea and can get really carried away. Like, oh my God, I have it. So it's really important. I think it's actually kind of nice for you that Mars is still retrograde as Jupiter's making the ingress, because it makes Mars it gives Jupiter's host a little bit of muting, and it helps to sort of think things through a little bit more. So we've got that going on. And then we've got Capricorn in your 11th house. You have a new moon in Capricorn, quickly followed by Mercury retrograde. This is definitely something where you're beginning something new and going over your professional or social networking relationships. The way you work within groups of other people. It might be that you're reconsidering the way you speak to people, you speak to or think of people who you consider allies or friends. I often see a lot of stuff with the 11th house when changes are being made in somebody's professional network. There's some sort of shift going on in somebody's professional network. So some new beginnings there, but also some Mercury retrograde period where you're reconsidering or going back over maybe something that feels like an initial new beginning in that new moon. Takes a few weeks to sort of process through and then get some traction going again in January when Mercury turns direct.
Nice. We
did
it. We got through all 12. That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope that this was helpful for you. Thank you, Alex, for being here. That was awesome.
Thanks, Adam. It was great.
I like to be transparent. People know that I am not a huge fan of horoscopes. However, horoscopes are the gateway drug. A lot of new people or people who don't know a ton about astrology love horoscopes, and I don't blame people for that at all. It's like what can you handle? Where's your level of interest? And people are at all different places. But I have found that, for me, being able to like alternate with Alex today and not having to just go through every single one myself, but being able to trade off, that is super, super helpful for me in doing a horoscope video, because as Alex is talking, it's generating all sorts of new insights and ideas in my own process. So I find that conversation when it comes to horoscopes and when it comes to the monthly overview, which we're also recording together this month for December, is just super helpful because, and I'll tell you, you talk to a dozen astrologers who write horoscopes regularly, which I did for a long time, or who record them regularly, is that it can feel really, really monotonous. And so, I think that like one of the things that I'm really excited for in doing this cooperatively is that it doesn't feel that way. Like this to me today, I was in a totally different zone because I got to sit back and watch one of my colleagues do his thing and then kind of like give me some ideas about where I could go. So I just love this. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Oh, thanks, Adam. And same here. It's just like I always learn so much, and it's really fun to riff. And yeah, it's just always nice to be able to. I think, I've said this before, astrologers are very much like yoga teachers in that we sometimes can get into our own little worlds with our screens and our,
Yeah.
and when we get to actually, and spinning the wheel. And when we actually get to interact and talk astrology and kind of hash things out together, like it's really, really awesome. And I just learned so much doing that. So thank you. It was really fun.
Yeah. Me too. I feel the same way. Well, if you guys want to get in touch with Alex, Instagram is Alex Amorosi Healing, but the new website is out too. So you can go check that out. It's alexamorosi.com. Book a reading, check out his work. Fantastic to have you here again. Last thing I will close with today is don't forget, everybody, that we are in the process of developing our support, trying to reach 1,608 backers through our Kickstarter. And you can find the link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video or in the comments section. When you go there, you can choose a reward when you donate and support our channel in 2023. So thank you guys very much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take it easy, everyone.
Bye, everyone.